Welcome. We are so honored, so blessed, so excited to be with all of you tonight. We are trying to create a revolution, and we just couldn't be more honored.
Yeah, I look out here and I'm just feeling so incredibly blessed that you all showed up for us. And this is our first big event, and it's so meaningful and so purposeful, and for all of you to be here with us is incredible. And there's no suffering in getting well. And I have to just tell you, one of the highlights for me of this last year was being able to come and do the tasting for the food tonight. When we apparently gave the order to the Beverly Hilton to provide, to do these menus, to do these recipes, they came out of my cookbook, and we asked them to do gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free. And we were giving them the list, and they're like, we've never done that. And we're like, oh, by the way, we need mocktails that are alcohol-free. And they're like, what? So we showed up for the tasting, and I have to tell you, I hope it translates the same way that it did that night, because it was absolutely incredible when we came for the tasting. And when they brought out the dessert, I'm like, they're lying. I want to talk to the chef. There's no way this is dairy-free and sugar-free. It can't be. I mean, I've tasted dairy and gluten-free. Like, I've tasted one of the three, but not all three that tasted that great. So I really hope you enjoy this food. It was absolutely incredible for us. And I hope that you realize when you taste this that it really can be done. But I am going to say, it really made me look bad because it did not taste like my recipes. It did taste like my cooking.
Superstar, who's danced for Madonna, was a host on The Talk, and has been a judge on Dancing with the Stars for more than 30 seasons, is here with us tonight as our host. I adore her and so grateful that she is a friend. Carrie, will you join us?
Hi, how's everybody doing? Yeah, feeling good? Isn't this fantastic? Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Dr. Amy and Tana, for having me tonight. This is such a huge honor for your first ever. Okay. All right, well, listen, I am just thrilled to be here tonight, supporting the amazing Change Your Brain Foundation, and thank you all for being here tonight. For myself, in these past few years, I have been on my own amazing health and brain journey, as I'm sure many of you in this room can relate to, right? Are you backing away from me?
Never. I am giving you the spotlight because I know you're going to share some of your story, and I have loved you. So I'll let you do that, and we'll be right back.
All right. Well, they're leaving me on my own. God help us all. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Amy and Tana. That was okay. I just love them so much. All right. So I went to Amen Clinics on the advice of a friend whose son had a remarkable recovery thanks to Dr. Amen. And she's here tonight. I just want to say a little shout out. Thank you, Julie Kozak, for this incredible introduction to Dr. Amen. You saved my life. Where are you, Julie? Can we give her a round of applause, please? Thank you. That means a lot to me. Thank you. When I met Dr. Amen, I was going through a really, really difficult time. I was in constant flare-ups with my autoimmune disease. In addition, due to the pandemic, I was feeling really anxious, depressed, and had brain fog. Sure, I wasn't alone. And it felt like everything was closing in on me. And I thought to myself, wait a second, I am too young to feel like this. I shouldn't feel this bad. So I went to several, and I mean many doctors. I went to experts. I had 7 MRIs. I was going anywhere to seek help. And I tried many, many different therapies. And things would work for a little while. But I always got back to the point where the tools that they had given me weren't enough. And I always ended up feeling like it was my fault. Can any of you relate to that? Yeah. I'm sorry that you felt that way. too, because I know it's a horrible feeling. And the one thing that I realized that was missing from all of my evaluations, nobody looked at my brain. Not one. No one even suggested it. And I always had a feeling that my brain worked a little differently than other people's, but how can you know unless you look and you see? So when I got my SPECT scan, it gave Dr. Amon a lot of clues about why I was feeling the way I did. And it made him ask me a lot of questions that no doctor had ever asked me before. And it turned out that my brain had been harmed due to several concussions. I had concussions and I didn't even know it. I mean, look, part of being a dancer is you fall down a lot, you whip your hair around, but then you gotta get back up, right? And so I didn't realize it. I didn't realize what I was doing to myself. There was another time when I was on Madonna's tour and I came down this 50-foot pole and I fell, right? And like, all of these things were contributing factors. And I'm okay after that fall, thank goodness, but I did get concussed. Dr. Amon also helped me find out that I had been exposed to mold. I had also tested positive for Lyme disease. And I am 54 and my hormones were off. Anyone relate to that one? Look, other doctors had not even tested me really for these things. They hadn't gone in depth this way. And when I told Dr. Amon that I had an autoimmune disorder, he asked why. He said, autoimmune disorders tell you what it is, not why it is. And I thought that was fascinating. So it's no wonder that the treatments that they were suggesting to me were always coming up short. Look, there's no psychiatric pill that's going to treat all that was going on with me. I could have been stuck for a long time in that downward spiral. But then I heard about Amon Clinics and the amazing brain imaging work that they do. And it sounded so cool. I mean, look, I'm a visual person. I judge dancing for a living. I like to see things. That's how I make sense of the world. And the brain, now I've worked with Dr. Amon, I have learned that the brain is involved in everything. The way we feel, the way we talk to ourselves, how sharp we are. So many things, right? It's how we see the world. It's how we experience things. It's how we feel everything. Getting my brain scanned was one of the most exciting things I've ever done. And seeing that there was a real biological component to my issues, that really helped me get over the shame. I felt shame about it. I saw that it wasn't mental. It was actually medical. And that one thing made such a huge difference for me. It was so empowering. And for the first time, truly, I stopped blaming myself. And I started to forgive myself. I stopped really feeling hopeless and helpless, which I had been feeling for so long. And I started to believe that there was a way out of this black hole that I was in. And it was one of the most powerful moments in my life. That's like that moment that I will always remember. My life shifted. And look, I have been blessed. I have met a lot of wonderful people. I've had a lot of great moments in my life. But this moment stands out. It was different. You know, you can be very successful. I'm sure a lot of you know this. You can be very successful. You can look the part. You can look like everything's okay. But you can still feel empty inside. And you can still feel lost. Or you can feel like you're not good enough. And no amount of money, fame, adulation, applause, followers, likes, any of that, none of it can convince you otherwise. And I don't know if I would have ever truly healed if I hadn't seen my brain with my own eyes. With Dr. Amon's guidance, I then started to address these issues. Look, I'm all standing up proud now because this is the good part. And for the most part, we did it naturally. I changed my diet. I was reluctant, I will say that. I did not want to change my diet. I wanted to eat the junk food that I was eating, but he said no. And it wasn't to change the way my body looked at all. I did it because I knew it was going to help my brain. After all that he explained to me, I knew it was going to help the way my brain functioned. I started taking nutraceuticals that were personalized for my brain. And that was like so different than taking those cookie cutter supplements, right? That might have worked for somebody else. His supplements were specifically made for me, and they worked so well. And then, this is the part that I love so much. I also learned how to challenge my ANTS. ANTS. Automatic negative thoughts. They were on a loop in my mind, and they were going round and round and round and round. And you may be familiar with some of the thoughts I had, right? That it was my fault that I feel so bad, somewhere along the line. I must have done something to cause this, right? I was also thinking that, look, I'm never gonna get better. This is not gonna happen. Nothing's worked so far, so why keep trying? Maybe I should just kind of give up and stay here and just get used to it. Then fast forward 8 months, just 8 months later, working with Dr. Zeeman, I went in for a follow-up scan, and my brain scan looked dramatically better. Even more importantly, I felt so much better. I was sleeping through the night. I was happier. I had more energy. I wasn't as forgetful, and I felt calmer. It was like the stress that had been weighing me down, that I had been carrying for so long, was suddenly lifted off my shoulders. I felt like me again, and maybe even a better me. I changed my brain with the help of Dr. Zeeman, and it honestly changed my life. Then I'm still a work in progress. I'm still working with Dr. Zeeman. It's been 20 months, and I'm still going strong. And recently, he added EMDR into my treatments, and that's a psychological therapy for trauma, and that has brought me to yet another level of healing. And I'm so grateful, and all I want to do now is help other people have this experience of letting go and healing. I want people who are suffering to be able to feel the same kind of inner peace, this joy, this mental sharpness that I now can say I have. Isn't there someone in your life that you can think of that deserves to feel happier, calmer? Maybe it's you. Or maybe someone you love is losing their precious memories, their connection to you, and you want more than anything to help them bring that back. Doesn't everybody deserve to have that life? I think we all do. And that's why we're all here tonight. And it's so great to see all of you here in support of Dr. Zeeman and Tana. Because together, we can make that happen. We can start changing the world one brain at a time. So I want to thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for letting me share my story with you. That's the first time I've told that whole story together, so thank you for being supportive. And I made it to the end, and I didn't cry. All right, so now, are we ready? Because we have some fascinating people and some incredibly heartwarming stories lined up for you, and you are going to love it. But first, we want to introduce you, right, to some of the special people in the audience who are here with us to support the end of mental illness. All right, so Dr. Zeeman has worked with so many amazing and influential people, like so many of you out here that I can see. So take it away, Dr. Zeeman.
So we have Lewis Howells here tonight. Could you just stand when we say your name? He owns the School of Greatness as one of the most influential podcasts.
Then we have Jim Kwik, the author of Limitless.
And J.J. Virgin, New York Times bestselling author, coach, my friend, my teacher, really.
Podcaster, best-selling author, and coach, Sean Stevenson.
Major League Baseball great, Troy Bloss.
Actress and model, Nikki Lee.
YouTube star Jeff Wittick, who makes me a star in my own home. My 17-year-old and 12-year-old niece, they thought I'm really cool because I know them.
Amy Braun, CEO of HealthCorps.
Peter Landesman, writer and director. of a number of movies, but my favorite one, Concussion.
Barry Goldstein, award-winning music producer and producer of 4 brain-enhancing music albums with the one and only Dr. Raymond himself.
Dr. Rice Broocks, writer of the God's Not Dead movies, which have just made a huge impact on my children. Dr. Broocks is going to give a blessing for the meal in just a few moments.
Kelly Blahakis, CEO of Earth Friendly Products.
Helping us on the red carpet tonight is Tim Story, acclaimed life coach, author, and speaker.
Actors Luke Cook, Amber Childers, Anna Lynn McCord, and Sid Wilder.
Victoria's Secret model, Sarah Sampaio.
NASCAR racer PJ Chesson.
Model and social media influencer, Abby Rao.
Public relations maven Heidi Crook.
Founder of Forbidden Knowledge, Johnny Carson.
Jason Waller, who you all saw outside of the red carpet. You may know him from The Hills or as a philanthropist, but
I'm so proud of him for being so open about his journey through substance abuse to become an addiction recovery advocate.
and Jenny Gard. You know her from Beverly Hills 90210, who is currently hosting the 90210 OMG podcast. Hello, Dancing Stars alumni.
My friend Lisa Gibbons, talk show host, who lost. Lisa has done so many amazing things, but has started her own nonprofit after losing her mother and grandmother to Alzheimer's.
Crystal Hefner, a Playboy model who got her life back after experiencing brain fog from Lyme disease and mold toxicity at the Playboy Mansion.
Olympian Alicia Newman, Olympic pole vaulter who reached dizzying heights, literally, and wanted to learn how a concussion might be impacting her. So proud of her.
This is amazing. So many incredible people. The former Real Housewives are here, Dina Canton and Gretchen Rossi.
Hannah Brown, star of The Bachelorette, and winner of Dancing with the Stars.
We just saw each other. Corey Robertson, best-selling author and Duck Dynasty star, and her daughter Bella are here.
Justin Brand, MMA fighter and founder of Fight for the Forgotten.
Jessamine Caruso, a comedian who has ADHD. Welcome to the club!
Pat Boone, the legendary singer and actor, so grateful to be here.
And Dick Butkus, the famed football player and sports announcer.
We also have the Change Your Brain Foundation Board, Troy and Tracy Duhan, Sherry Schultze, and Dr. Earl Henson. We're grateful for your support.
And everyone who's a part of a clinics, please just raise your hand or stand and just say hello. We want to thank you. Thank you all.
No. So let me introduce Dr. Rice Broocks. He and I met after he had a car accident. That's how I've met a lot of you in this room. But I was so excited to meet him. He wrote God's Not Dead and the sequels. I loved those movies. I thought they were incredibly powerful. And so when I had the opportunity, I had to look at his brain. So, Dr. Broocks, come join us. Bless the meal with us.
It's probably not shocking to tell you that a majority of young people, when they leave high school, when they leave their homes and they go to university, they'll lose their faith. And that's why, for me, even though I'm a pastor in Nashville, I spend the majority of my time on university campuses in this dialogue, in this important dialogue. You hear people say things like, well, there's no evidence for God. And when I'm told that by skeptics, I said, well, what evidence are you looking for? What would you accept? Many times they haven't really thought about it. And I said, well, look, if you were looking for Steve Jobs, you wouldn't have found him by breaking down an iPhone. So you have to know what you're looking for. You're looking for the evidence of an intelligent mind behind the universe. Einstein showed us that the universe had a beginning, the time, space, and matter began, so that means that the cause would necessarily be spaceless, timeless, and immaterial, non-physical. So I began to write this book, God's Not Dead, and I was telling a friend about it, about this whole scenario of young people losing their faith, and while I was writing the book to kind of codify the evidence for God from science, from philosophy and history. And he said, this guy, his name is Troy Duhan, who's here tonight. Troy said, that needs to be a movie. So he brought this movie company, and they followed us around UCLA. We were having an event. And, the reality of there is a non-physical creator. That's really the point. And we're going to take what you see here and here and kind of, spread that out across university campuses. We're on at least do 50 events every year on university campuses. And we see end of mental illness events happening to show that, number one, you are not your brain, that the mind can change the brain, and the non-physical dimension to you exist. There is a self, there is a you. You're not, that self is not an illusion. Because there is a non-physical dimension to us that points to a non-physical creator that made us. Knowing that our brains are not all we are, and the mind can change the brain, then we can tap into this God of heaven who created us. And that's who we look to tonight. We look to him, all he can do to help us understand, to illuminate us, to guide us, to help people, to help the masses of people that need our help. So, Father in heaven, thank you tonight for your mercies. Thank you for this meal. Thank you for all that have been brought together for this moment. We ask that you would shine your grace upon us tonight. Make your face shine upon us tonight and give us grace. And again, bless our food. We thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
On October 1st, 2017, Troy and I and a group of 15 friends were attending Route 91 Harvest Festival in celebration that my chemo had just been completed in my battle with breast cancer.
All of a sudden, gunfire started coming out at the concert.
When he did get shot in the leg, I asked him if he was shot and he told me he wasn't. When we went to run, I tried to help people get up, and Troy had to tell me, we can only save the ones that can move. I can still see a lot of those people's faces and the fact that we had to leave people behind.
It's difficult for me to understand what PTSD really was. It just kept coming up that I couldn't save as many people as I wanted to save.
So one of the wonderful things that we found out through the Amen Clinic was about EMDR. It's a phenomenal treatment that is provided for PTSD patients. Through that, along with our supplements and all the other guiding that we got through the Amen Clinic, that has definitely helped my brain be able to process our trauma.
Through the PTSD and the healing of our brain, I realized that we could help a lot more people.
We could provide hope in a hopeless situation.
All right, so let's hear it for Dr. Amen, everyone. So amazing, that was incredible. Now, if you're like me, you're probably feeling very hopeful now about how we can help change the world by contributing to the Change Your Brain Foundation. So more on that in a short second. For now, I'd like to introduce a man who's made a name for himself as a biohacking pioneer. I can't wait for you to hear how he went from barely making the grade in college to becoming the superstar CEO of Human Upgrade Labs. Let's hear it for Dave Asprey.
I am so happy to be here to thank Daniel Amen for the work he's done. Back in the 90s, I think I can still remember them because my brain works. Before I was 30, I had made and lost $6 million. I weighed 300 pounds. And my entire career, I didn't know what was going on because my brain wasn't working. I was desperately tired at the end of every day. I don't know how I got home from work because I couldn't remember the drive home. But I never told anyone. And I just faked it until I made it, and I did make it. And it cost me so much. And it cost because I felt like a fraud. I felt like I was ashamed that I was weak. Guys, I ran strategy for a $36 billion publicly traded company that created web hosting. I wasn't doing bad, but I felt like I was accelerating at the accelerator all the way to the floor. But I was slowing down. And no matter how much willpower, no matter how much effort I had, I couldn't bring it. And I bought disability insurance. So I'm like, I don't know that I'd hire myself. And I went to business school at Wharton. You know, where smart people go. What you're supposed to do to be successful and happy. And I'm there, I'm failing. I am clearly not as smart as my classmates. And I read the first edition of Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And I thought, holy crap, maybe I'm not a total failure. Maybe something's going on here. And I went and got a SPECT scan. And when I walked in, psychiatrist looked at me, who'd been trained by Daniel, hadn't yet met him. And he said, oh, I knew this thing. Tech bro wants Adderall to get through business school. I've got your number. But he scanned me anyway. When I walked in, he said, Dave, I didn't know how you're standing here in front of me. Inside your brain is total chaos. Literally, the best camouflage he's ever seen. And I took this great big sigh of relief, and I said, great, now can I have a modafinil? Which is the limitless drug, if you don't know about it. And he said, no, there's more to it than that. And I went that day from having a shame problem, having a moral failing problem, having an effort problem, to having a hardware problem. And as a computer hacker, I can fix a hardware problem. Anyone can fix a hardware problem. There's no shame in a hardware problem. And that feeling of being out of control, of being weak, was so crippling, I didn't even understand what it was. I hadn't unpacked the fact that I had brain damage, which when I met Daniel a few years later and just was able to thank him, he looked at my scans and said, yeah, you have brain damage from toxic mold. I also had PTSD from birth, early childhood, and I went through all this. And I ended up starting the field of biohacking and built a $100 million a year business. None of that would have happened had it not been for Daniel's first book and the continued pushing that he's had. And since then, I've learned something. In fact, I featured him in one of my books, not as just a brain doctor, but in a book about what happens when you succeed, when the critics come out. And I felt this, putting butter in coffee, the whole biohacking, you're in charge of your own biology movement. I had taken a lot of hits. And I actually asked Daniel, hey, how do you do this? Because he has taken so many attacks from his own profession, but he just leaned in, did it anyway. And when you see the people who used to say, how dare you, say, thank you, which is the transition that he's made over the past 25 years, it's heartwarming, but it takes a special kind of grit, a special kind of love for your patients and a special desire to make a difference in the world. And I've never seen Daniel waver in that commitment. I've seen him work hard. I'm incredibly honored to be on his board of directors and get to talk with them about difficult business decisions that are always made with love and with your best interests at heart, because he believes in what he's doing. He's got the data that supports what he's doing, and it's starting to finally make that change in the world of psychiatry, where enough people know the message that we can end mental illness. And we're not going to do it by sitting on couches and talking about things, although that can be beneficial. We're going to do it by looking at the hardware and fixing it the way we do for most of the other medical professions. So my heart goes out, my endless eternal gratitude for Daniel. And I hope that tonight in the auction that you support this movement greatly, because it doesn't just change the people who understand what's going on with their brains, the people like me whose brains get fixed. It changes our children. It changes our employees. It changes our spouses. It saves marriages. It prevents children from being abused by parents who are so out of control because their brains are damaged. It brings people back from the brink. It ends addiction. And it makes the world a better place. So please join me in just an extra round of applause for Daniel personally, just for the grit. Thank you, Daniel.
So inspiring. Thank you, Dave. That was amazing. Such an incredible turnaround. And I agree with you, what you're saying about Dr. Amen being so consistent. He's always there. He's always there, consistent. So this all started for him when he saw his brain, right? So our next speaker is a brain coach who's been teaching Fortune 500 CEOs, celebrities, and students to, listen up to this, improve their memory, read faster, and study more effectively. So I wish I had known him when I was in college. That would have been nice. All right, everybody, let's give a warm welcome to Jim Kwik.
I'm so used to moving around on this stage. It's so good to see everybody this evening. I've spoken in this venue no less than 50 times, and I kind of want to go into like teach you how to triple your reading speed and learn foreign languages and remember everyone's name. But that's not why I'm here this evening. I met Daniel over a dozen years ago, and he's been integral on my path. Some of you know that I had a traumatic brain injury when I was 5 years old. I was in kindergarten class, took a very bad fall, and because of it, I had learning disabilities. I had poor focus, a poor memory. It took me 3 years longer just to learn how to read. When I was 9 years old, I was slowing down the class and being teased pretty harshly about it. And a teacher came to my defense in front of the whole class. But all I remember, she pointed to me for the whole entire class in front of the other kids and said, "Leave that kid alone. That's the kid with the broken brain." And that kind of became my identity growing up. At the same time, my grandmother, who was my caregiver, started showing early signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, and passed when I was 7 years old. So it's interesting how certain events happen early on that kind of shape your path. And on my road to fix my broken brain, Daniel and the Amen Clinics was very, very vital to that. I had my first brain scan almost a decade ago, and I was just, anyone here get their brain scan with Daniel? Amazing. And so, it just opened my eyes in terms of what I need to do and how to be able to fix it and bounce back. What I wanted to do, this is so different. I'd like everyone really quickly, if you're willing to stand up. Because I'm kind of painfully introverted. Any other, where are my fellow introverts? Raise your hand. All right. I'd love for everyone to meet someone new really quickly. Just find one person to meet them, please. One person, introduce yourself, go. All right, shh. Find a partner. Repeat after me. Repeat after me. All right, here's the key. Shh. here's the key. This is an experiment, and I haven't done this in this venue before. So we're gonna do this really kind of fun and fast. But I think the key, I wrote a book called Limitless, and people ask me all the time, how do you become limitless in a limited world? My answer is we do it together. We have each other's backs, we have each other's brains. And that's the only way that this is gonna work, right? I have a quote in that book that says, life is the C between B and D, where B is birth, D is death, life C is choice. That these difficult times can diminish you, these difficult times can distract you, or these difficult times, they can develop you. You know, ultimately, we decide with the choices we make. And so I think how we have each other's back is so very important because you never know the battles other people are facing, right? Is that true? And so I'm gonna do an exercise to bond everyone here together. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna play a game. Because children are the fastest learners, right? And what we're gonna play is rock, paper, scissors. Does anyone remember that? All right, so everyone do this. Rock beats what? No. Scissors. Scissors beats paper, and paper beats. And so the game we're gonna play very quickly in a couple minutes is you're gonna do rock, paper, scissors with your partner, right? And then whoever wins just once, rock, 1, 2, 3, and then go. Whoever wins raises their hand. And they're gonna look for somebody else that raises their hand, and then they're gonna battle that person, okay? Now, here's the thing where the bonding happens here. The person who doesn't win, you become the biggest cheerleader for that person. You are kind, you are compassionate, and yeah. So how do you cheer people on? Go. How do you do? Amazing. So you go around and you follow that person every single time. The person who wins, you cheer them on. Are you ready? All right, go. Raise your hand if you want and find somebody else who raised their hand. Go. Circling, move around. Oh, come on, cheer for them, cheer for them. Louder, louder. Find somebody else, raise their hand, go ahead. Move around, move around. Quickly find somebody else, raise their hand. Who's left in the game? Raise your hand high. Raise your hand high. Raise your hand if you're still in the game. Come on, cheer them on. Celebrate with your new friends. Go, go, go. Move around. Who's still in the game? Raise your hand if you're still in the game. Right here, right there. Go, go, go. Anybody left? Raise your hand. Go. We have 30 seconds. Find somebody else. Raise their hand. Move around, move around, move around. Who's still in the game? Raise your hand. Right over here. Right over here. Go, go, go. Oh, come on. Cheer them on, everybody. Cheer them on. One over here, one over here. Find somebody else. Raise their hand quick. You have 30 seconds to finish this game. Go, go, go. Cheer them on so we can hear it. Oh, come on, let's really cheer them on. Find somebody else, move around, find them out. All right, everybody, let's give a round of applause to everybody who's still in the game. The message here is this. All right, here's the message. We never know what the battles people are facing. You can take this out in the lobby after we're done. But here's the thing, kindness is a superpower. And it all starts with your heart and your brain. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, now we're gonna learn a dance. No, I'm just kidding. Keep staring, guys. And 5, 6, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Jim. That was amazing. You guys feel great? It was so great listening to you all backstage, having so much fun and being so kind. What a beautiful moment. Thank you, Jim. It's really exciting. It's really exciting to see how the future of psychiatry is coming to life. And educating future generations is a really big part of the goal to end mental illness by creating a revolution in brain health. Look at what our partner organization, HealthCorps, is doing to enhance wellness in young people.
Our youth were facing a health crisis even before the pandemic. Suicide was the second leading cause of death in teens, and anxiety and depression were up 40% in a recent California study. That comes from a large amount of negative thoughts. We knew that we needed to come up with a new curriculum and lesson that would really help them tackle this head on. Dr. Amen and the Change Your Brain Foundation brought in an incredible expertise, allowing us to really tackle the root of what is causing many of the negative thoughts for our students. As Dr. Amen says, there is an ant infestation in this country that is driving anxiety, depression, trauma, and grief.
So we're helping students understand whether these are legitimate thoughts or whether they're automatic negative thoughts.
I think it's pretty universal to struggle with negative thoughts. I, for one, struggle with thoughts that root from anxiety, like negative self-talk, like I'm not good enough or they don't like me.
I'll never graduate college or high school, that I'll just somehow fail everything.
I'm not smart enough, I'm not social enough, or just thoughts surrounding of not fitting in.
Typically when a student comes up to me, I would walk them through ants and the 9 different types that we have created here. After they grab their prompt, we're going to take them through 5 different steps. Basically, these are 5 different questions that they have to ask themselves, like, is this true? Is this 100% true? After that, we're going to have them walk over to our launch rocket, where they will launch off their negative thought, and then they'll walk over to our tasty treat table, where they can create an ants on the log to kind of stay on theme. It's amazing what the students' minds can do when you give them the ability and the freedom to do whatever they set their mind to.
I believe that school should be an area where you learn how to take care of yourself as well as how to go further in your life.
An impassioned teenager is a force to be reckoned with.
Alcohol is the #1 drug of choice for today's teenagers. Despite the legal drinking age of 21, a 16-year-old in the United States is more likely to die of an alcohol-related cause than any other.
What we do here is we get 3-dimensional pictures of the brain.
Nathan volunteers to get his brain scanned, first while sober,
Here we go.
and then after getting drunk. The drinking begins. A California Highway Patrol officer confirms Nathan is indeed officially intoxicated.
0.109, so he is just over the legal limit of 0.08.
Alcohol is a very significant suppressor of brain activity. It shuts down brain activity, and so you won't think as clearly, you won't make as good a decisions, you'll be more impulsive, you'll act like you're only working with half a brain.
I know that I could drive home safely right now, assuming that no other drivers cut in front of me and smash into me.
Nathan's sober brain is on the left, his brain on alcohol on the right.
Looks like Swiss cheese.
If you look back here, here's your coordination part of your brain. You see how much smaller it is. And so even though your perception is, you can drive, no problem, you'll be the same, that part of your brain that controls that is not the same.
Cigarettes were the first thing that I was introduced to. Alcohol and cigarettes, drinking, smoked pot, mushroom, ecstasy, anything I could get my hands on to swallow. Prescription drugs, liquid acid, heroin, cocaine, Percocet, Percodan, Vicodin, Valium, and then God knows whatever the marijuana was laced with.
Your brain at 20 I would think this is a 70-year-old's brain.
Teenagers, adults, they have no clue that when they're smoking pot, they're actually damaging their brain.
Everything that I saw in school about it, I found out one day that it's all true and it's all happening to me.
When your brain works right, you work right.
I'd like to just be able to think normally.
What we're looking at here is a healthy brain.
I'm just worried that my brain is also going to be gone and they're never coming back.
And this is a cocaine brain. So the real question is, which brain do you want? Just the surgery, the coronary artery bypass surgery, a lot of people don't know, that increases your risk of memory problems. You don't have Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease would show the back half of your brain is dying. But your memory centers, they're in trouble. This is your temporal lobes. That surgery was involved in damaging your hippocampus.
Can you believe that we've already had 25 lessons about the brain? 25! Wow! First, we spent 5 lessons learning about some of the brain basics from Nedrick. And then, we spent the next 5 lessons learning about the boss brain from Gibson. Then, we learned about mindfulness with Willow. And then, we spent 5 lessons with Dennis learning about automatic negative thoughts. And finally, we spent the last 5 lessons with Millie May learning about kindness.
Aren't you all happy that you have mocktails now after seeing that? Exactly. All right, well, I don't know about you all, but I'm feeling smarter already. And speaking of smart, a big part of the Change Your Brain Foundation is dedicated to cutting-edge scientific research. Research that will help transform psychiatry into a brain health specialty. Here to tell you about the latest exciting findings is the Foundation's Director of Research, Dr. Dave Keator. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. God, it's so exciting to see such a packed audience in support of brain health. Isn't this a great event? Well, trying to advance the slide here. Let's see what happens. There we go. All right, I'd like to first start by introducing myself. I'm the new Chief Research Officer for the Foundation. For approximately 30 years, I've been doing research in the field of psychiatry using neuroimaging techniques to study brain-based biomarkers of psychiatric and neurological disorders. Prior to coming to the Foundation, I was a research professor at UC Irvine. And beyond psychiatric research, I was also the operations and technical director of the Brain Imaging Center, a research lab that was responsible for collecting most of the human neuroimaging data for research studies done at UC Irvine over the last 40 years. I have a PhD in machine learning, while my undergraduate degree was pre-med. I've published over 175 scientific articles across many brain health-related disorders like schizophrenia, depression, dementia, and others. I'm a co-patent holder on a methods patent related to evaluating your unique genetics alongside brain function measured with techniques that are similar to those used by the Foundation. So now, with the focus on mathematics and data science that is my daily career, one needs some hobbies as well. So, and it turns out that many analytical folks enjoy woodworking. So about 10 years ago, I started hand-making acoustic guitars to both learn an art that is rapidly being replaced by automation and, to build myself some really cool instruments to play. And, as you might imagine, we have a whole house full of them now. So people ask me what got me interested in the brain when I'm a data scientist by training. And I think my relationship with Leanne kind of tells the story. Leanne had Down syndrome, and she was a participant in one of my research studies. And it turns out people with Down syndrome are at a dramatically higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease than in the general population. It's often said that if somebody with Down syndrome lived to 85, they'd almost certainly develop Alzheimer's disease. And because of their unique genetics, it helps us understand the possible causes. Well, for the 5 years that Leanne was part of our study, we became friends. And when she came in to get her brain scanned, we'd spend time together. And she always used to say, "Dr. Dave helps me take care of my brain." It was so cute. She even started quilting me some coasters that I use every day in my office. This one said bra, because she always used to say to me, she'd say, "What's up, bra?" She'd give me that hang loose sign, because she knew I was a surfer. It was so cute. But unfortunately, Leanne passed away about a month ago. And next to her bedside was a picture on the right. And it was so touching to me that she, in some sense, relied on me to help her live a better life. And it's an example of why I use the skills and talent that I have to help people. So on a lighter note, what's my job at the foundation? That is super simple. It's to do high quality research, and through research, change the lives of millions of people. Yeah, okay. Maybe it's not that simple, but that's the job anyway. So some of you may be asking yourself, doesn't the federal government spend a lot on mental health research already? And the answer is yes, they do. But here are just a couple examples of how good that investment is doing in terms of outcomes. So the National Institute of Mental Health between 2014 and 2021 spent $3.9 billion in depression research, but only 24% of depressed patients are responding to treatments. Anxiety disorder, $1.4 billion. ADHD, $452 million. In a longitudinal study of 558 children, only 9.1% of those children recovered by the study endpoint, and 60% of those kids experienced a reoccurrence of ADHD. That's just not good enough. PTSD, 889 million, and so forth. Even Dr. Thomas Insel, the former director of NIMH, said that the outcomes in psychiatry are no better than they were in the 1950s. And I think that needs to change, and I think this foundation is the conduit to make that change. So, being relatively new to the foundation, I inherited a long line of fascinating research using brain imaging to study things like suicide risk, response to treatments, substance abuse and its effect on the brain and aging of the brain, concussions like our NFL study, which was the largest of its kind, brain-directed supplements and how they can heal the brain, and many others. Further, we published in some of the most prestigious journals, and I expect under my leadership that this list will grow. Finally, I inherited the world's largest brain imaging database with over 210,000 scans. In my prior research, I'd have been happy with a couple hundred scans. For a data scientist, the foundation database is a gold mine of information waiting for the resources to learn from. So with only a few minutes to talk to you this evening, I can't tell you about all the fascinating research we've done. I selected this study looking at adverse childhood experiences and how those experiences change your brain and how those changes can tell us about treatments and outcomes when you're an adult. Here I'm showing areas of the brain colored in red and yellow that are hyperactive as a function of more adverse childhood experiences in over 2,000 adult patients. By looking and seeing what's happening in the brain, we can make better clinical decisions and improve outcomes. So what's on my research agenda? Here's a short list of some of the studies we'd like to pursue. To discover brain-based biomarkers for improved brain and body health, to predict treatment response for a wide variety of conditions, to show how natural ways like diet and supplement can heal the brain, to validate our treatments and their effectiveness, and to seek FDA indications for SPECT imaging to do things like separate post-traumatic stress disorder from traumatic brain injury, depression from dementia, and others. Okay, so as you all know, research requires resources. So if I had more resources, I could learn more from our database of 210,000 scans. I could conduct more studies and publish more transformational results. I could help more people. We could recruit the best and brightest scientists to join us on this journey to transform psychiatry into a brain health specialty. Thank you for your support. I look forward to doing my part to create the changes we seek to improve the lives for individuals and families. Please enjoy the rest of your evening.
When
cleaning in his office, dusting or whatever, I had knocked over that journal. The book landed on its spine and opened. And I looked down and I saw hang myself. So I asked him questions and he had explained to me that suicide was something that he thought about all day and just tried really hard to keep at bay. That's when I was like, okay, I've had enough.
My mom saw Dr. Amen on a PBS special, and she ordered one of his books. It was Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. I read that, and I was just really fascinated by it. Why don't we just get a brain scan just to see what really was going on in there? It was pretty mind-blowing just to be able to actually see everything.
It just blew my mind how, nobody looks at the physicality of the brain.
Once you can see that something is physical, that means you can actually work with it. And so that really gave me a lot of hope and really gave me a lot of encouragement. The suicidal ideations, they've decreased dramatically just with the therapy and everything I've been doing, and along with the treatment Amen Clinics has provided. I'm really able to, talk back and fight back those negative thoughts, and they go away.
I'd like to introduce you to someone who is very special to Dr. Amen and has been working with him for years. She couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, but she wanted to share her story with all of you. This is the one and only Miley Cyrus.
Happy holidays to the Change Your Brain and Change Your Life Foundation. I wanted to start with a little information about me and my friend, Dr. Amen, and our relationship. When I was 18, I started suffering from panic attacks, and without him and his support and all of his information, I don't know if I'd be sitting here today being able to actually live my dream free of that anxiety, fear, and worry that was holding me back. That was a gift that I really wanted to share with my fans and anyone who's inspired by the kind of mental health journey that I've been on and I've been open about and kind of sharing the information as I go and as I learn. And so Happy Hippie and the Change Your Brain, Change Your Life Foundation are official partners, which just makes me so proud and honored that my personal experience can now help so many people kind of understand their own experience and their own journey with mental health. And none of it would be possible without the incredible Dr. Amen. I love you so much, and thank you for always being there for me.
Sharing her story. Like Miley, and like so many of you in this room tonight, I have sat on Dr. Amen's couch. You know it, right? That big brown leather couch that you sit in and you sink in and you get real. Now let's be honest. The thought of sitting on a psychiatrist's couch can be very intimidating and very humbling. But working with a brain health specialist, that's different. That's empowering. It breaks through the shame that so many of us feel about our own mental health because it focuses on brain health. Dr. Amen changed the way I view my own mental health, and he changed the way I view myself and also the world around me. And I am forever grateful. And I'm just one of tens of thousands of people who he's helped with their own healing process. He ends people's suffering. He shows them how to be happier, makes them more successful, they're more peaceful. They're thriving. For 30 years, he has been changing lives. And together, we can help him change even more lives. I'm going to let him share his story of how he's leading the way to change how psychiatry is practiced and how it all starts right here with the brain. I am so excited and so honored to introduce you, and I know you're all ready for this, to the founder of Change Your Brain Foundation, the one and only, the amazing Dr. Daniel Amen.
I am having so much fun, and I am so grateful. Could be the wrong one. There we go. So I want to start with how grateful I am to all of you, to our sponsors, to my amazing team, our board members. It wouldn't happen without you. How many of you, raise your hand, if you've ever loved someone with a brain or a mental health issue? How many of you have one that you've been concerned about? I want you to think about them as I go through my talk. Mental health issues affect us all. Either you've struggled or you love someone who has, nobody escapes. And the incidence of these problems are skyrocketing, with deaths from drugs, alcohol, and suicide at their highest level in recorded history before the pandemic. And then everything got worse. But what I'm really excited about, what I'm going to talk about tonight, is I believe we are on the cusp of a new revolution based on over 210,000 scans. I look at that number and I'm amazed. I inherited my energy from my mother. But to just think, 1991 was the first year I ordered a SPECT scan. And every year, the database just grew and grew. And what did we learn? Most psychiatric problems are not mental health issues at all. Rather, they are brain health issues that steal your mind. And this one idea, it changes everything. Get your brain healthy, and your mind will follow. Your brain, the physical functioning of your brain, creates your mind. And I almost feel bad, but I've been incredibly blessed to actually see many people in this room. I mean, highly successful, beautiful, but trust me, I've seen the other end as well. But I remember when Justin Bieber came into my office, and I love Justin. But he's like, sometimes he'd come and sometimes he wouldn't, and sometimes he'd do what I'd say, and most of the time he wouldn't. And then in 2019, there was darkness. And he came into my office and he said, I think I understand what you're trying to tell me. My brain is an organ like my heart is an organ. If you told me I had heart problems, I'd do everything you said. He said, I'm going to do everything you say. And got dramatically better. We saw his before and after scans. So beautiful. And I'm so proud of him. So if we just take what he told me, your brain can have problems just like your heart can have problems. Did you know that most people who see cardiologists have never had a heart attack? They're there to prevent them. I believe if we are ever going to end mental illness, we have to develop a similar way of thinking where we know the brain's risk factors and we attack each one as soon as we know it's there. So for example, teenagers who just sleep an hour less than their peers have a higher incidence of depression and suicide. People who have gut health issues have a higher incidence of anxiety and brain fog. Or people who have infections like Lyme or COVID can cause you to be angry, depressed, even psychotic. So we're living in this time of an incredible increase in mental health problems. Well, we just came through a pandemic. And did you know COVID attacks your brain? We knew that from the first month that COVID attacked your brain because you lost your sense of taste and smell. Those are brain functions. COVID causes a dramatic increase and inflammatory markers in the brain. In fact, if you get COVID, you have a 25% chance, a 1 in 4 chance of having a new onset psychiatric illness within the next 6 months. That's horrifying. Is that mental health, or is your brain on fire? Your brain's on fire. So I was blessed to see Kendall Jenner, and I was on the Kardashians, and I got lots of grief about that. But I loved it. Because people I hadn't heard from since I was a child said, I watched the Kardashians. It's my guilty pleasure. And it was so fun to see you on there. Well, this is Kendall's brain. She had brain fog. Her anxiety really ramped up after she had COVID. And if you look, so blue is average activity, red is the top 15%, white is the top 8%, should be in your cerebellum, the back bottom part of the brain. See, I can talk to you about this because you've not had alcohol. Just saying. I mean, it might not be good for the fundraising part of this, but but if you look at a healthy brain, the cerebellum, back bottom part, really healthy, Kendall's emotional brain is on fire. It's a brain. Our mission at the Change Your Brain Foundation is to end mental illness. And people look at me and go, how are you going to do that? We're going to create a revolution in brain health. We need to end the concept of mental illness. Call somebody mental and you shame them. Call them a brain and you elevate them. Nobody loves their brain. I live in Newport Beach. We have more plastic surgeons than almost anywhere in the world. People care about their faces, their boobs, their bellies, and their butts. And nobody cares about their brain. And that's insane. So, tonight, we're going to talk about revolutions and how scientific revolutions happen and how I want you to help me change this paradigm. We have the ability to change medical specialty, and it's currently hijacked by the American Psychiatric Association, by the insurance companies, by the pharmaceutical industries, by big food. It's, you'll hear me say it, the shit show. It's a shit show. But we can make a difference, and I am absolutely convinced. So, how does scientific revolutions happen? There's actually a manual for it. It was written in 1962 by scientific historian Thomas Kuhn. And he wrote that all scientific revolutions go through 6 stages. So we're going to talk about them. The first stage, well, it's just the status quo. And this is the status quo in psychiatry, and I'm not kidding even a little bit. There is no hyperbole in my talk tonight. We make diagnoses based on symptoms, and then decide what to do based on what you told us. No other medical specialists act like this. So, for example, you say, I'm depressed. And the doctor goes, oh, your diagnosis is depression. And gives you an antidepressant that in large-scale studies work no better than placebo. In fact, you may have heard a couple of months ago that the serotonin hypothesis of depression is nonsense. Now, it actually is not nonsense for about 17% of people. It works really well if you give them an SSRI. But when you say depression is one thing, it's not. One treatment will never work for everyone. Or you go to the doctor and you say, I'm anxious. And they go, well, you have an anxiety disorder. And then they give you a benzo that is addictive and increases your risk of dementia. Netflix has a brand new documentary called Xanax. or you have an addiction. And they go, oh, you have an addiction. And then they send you to a treatment program. You know, Jason Waller was on our red carpet. He's one of our Scan My Brain stars. And when 14 of them said his parents spent over $1 million, they're often not very effective or go to a 12-step program. And I'm a huge fan of 12-step programs, but the studies say they work no more than 10%. Or you say, I can't concentrate. They say you have attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, give you a stimulant, which helps some people and makes other people worse. Or my favorite diagnostic category to explain this insanity is you have temper problems. We actually have a diagnostic category in the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, that's how we diagnose things, called intermittent explosive disorder. IED. You sort of get the irony of that. You think about Iraq or Afghanistan, the roadside bombs. It's like, oh, you're a roadside bomb. And then they'll put you in anger management classes or give you any number of medicines with no biological data. What other medical specialists act like this? This is, again, I'm not kidding, the same way Lincoln was diagnosed in 1840. So I love Lincoln. He was failed, like repeatedly, and then became a wild success. And he suffered severe depression throughout his life. In fact, he was suicidal twice. His friends had to take his knife from him. And in the winter of 1840, his friend dragged him to see Dr. Anson Henry in Springfield, Illinois. And how did Dr. Henry diagnose Lincoln with depression? He talked to him. He looked at him. He looked for symptom clusters and then diagnosed and treated him. You tell me that's not exactly how most people in 2022 is diagnosed with depression. That's insane. Psychiatrists remain the only medical specialists who never look at the organ they treat. Cardiologists look, your neurologist look, your orthopedic doctor looks, your GI doctor looks, everybody looks, psychiatrists guess. And they call me crazy. No, I took the MMPI. I am not crazy. I'm just like boring, normal. But I'm pissed off because our patients deserve better. Look at the statistics. Based on symptom clusters, 25% of the American population is on psychiatric meds. Last year, there were 337 million prescriptions for antidepressants. This should concern you. 27% of doctor visits. All the statistics I'm going to share with you tonight, this is the one that just irritates me the most. 27% of all doctor visits, your internist, your gynecologist, your nurse practitioner, your psychiatrist, your family doctor, is prescribed a benzo, an addictive drug that increases your risk of dementia. 85% of psychiatric drugs are prescribed by non-psychiatric physicians in 10-minute office visits that do standard of care treatment 12% of the time. Often without ever teaching skills to manage their minds or improve the health of their brains. Like alcohol's a disinfectant. Why would you ever drink a disinfectant if you were a rational human being? Just saying. Not wanting to put a damper on the evening. Okay, so that's stage one. Stage two, the discrepancies show. So, a little backstory on me. 1972, I turned 18. The government had a draft. I became an infantry medic where my love of medicine was born. About a year into being an infantry medic, I learned something very important about myself. I don't like being shot. It's not for me. We need people like this. There are some people that like the firefighters that like to run toward trouble. It's just not me. And so I got myself retrained as an X-ray technician and developed a passion for medical imaging. And our professors used to say, how do you know unless you look? And I got out of the Army in 1975, finished college, went to medical school. Second year medical student, someone I love tries to kill himself. And I take this to be a wonderful psychiatrist, and I'm like, shouldn't they look at her brain? Because imaging is just sort of in my soul at this point. And it's like, oh, we don't do that. Okay, so backstory. I'm a young psychiatrist. Based on symptom clusters, I prescribed Prozac for depression, and some people got better, and others wanted to kill someone or wanted to kill themselves. Now, this is personal. I became a psychiatrist because someone I love tried to kill herself. I want to do a good job. And I want to do a good job, not for the patient, but for the people who love the patient, because that was me. And the idea of hurting people horrified me. All psychiatric medicine, so think about this, all of them, stimulants, antidepressants, antipsychotics, have black box warnings. Why? Give them to the wrong brain and they hurt people. So what's wrong with the paradigm? Our imaging work taught us that depression is like chest pain. And no one gets the diagnosis of chest pain. Why? Because it doesn't tell you what causes it, and it doesn't tell you what to do for it. Starting everyone on the same treatment. So imagine you have a cardiologist, and you go to him, and he's got 1,000 people with chest pain, and he started everybody on nitroglycerin. What would they call him? A quack. Right? They go, that's stupid. That's insane. Why would you ever do that? Why wouldn't you look and find out the source of the chest pain? I mean, just think with me, what can cause chest pain? Heart attack, a heart arrhythmia, a heart infection, pneumonia, gas, anxiety, and grief. You're going to give everybody the same treatment for all of those things because he has chest pain? Of course not. That's insane. Depression is exactly the same thing. What can cause depression? Loss, isolation, infection, low thyroid, a concussion, mold exposure. Do you think all of them are going to respond to an SSRI, or we should start everybody on Lexapro? It's nuts. One treatment will never work for everyone. Symptom clusters will never tell you the brain is toxic. So Dave Asprey's scan looked very much like this, but 13 years later was dramatically better. Never tell you if it's traumatic. You go, hey Daniel, what's the single most important thing you've learned from 210,000 scans? Mild traumatic brain injury ruins people's lives, and nobody knows about it because they see psychiatrists and never look at their brain. Never tell you if the brain works too hard or not hard enough. So, if you don't look, you are unnecessarily flying blind, missing important information, and you hurt people. So, meet Adriana, who I love so much. Normal, beautiful, 16-year-old girl who goes to Yosemite on vacation. And when they get to their cabin, they're surrounded by 6 deer. And they think it's a magical moment. But 10 days later, Adriana becomes psychotic. She becomes paranoid, she's delusional, she's aggressive, and her parents are horrified, and they put her in a psychiatric hospital. And the doctor there, trained at Stanford, said Adriana has schizophrenia, and she needs to be on an antipsychotic for the rest of her life. Now, if you knew Adriana's mother, she's very much like Tana. She would have none of that. But 6 months later, Adriana's a shell. And the medications are breaking out her skin. I mean, they're clearly not good for her. Her mother brings her to our clinic. Her brain is on fire. The doctor in our Northern California clinic goes, "Why is her brain on fire?" When Carrie said, "I have an autoimmune disorder," and I asked her why, that was a question nobody asked her, which just completely blows my mind, because an autoimmune disorder, your body is so pissed off at you, it's attacking itself like friendly fire. Why? And so when we asked why, it turned out she had Lyme disease. And on an antibiotic, brain-healthy habits, she got her life back. She actually ended up going to Pepperdine, not far from here, graduated, got a master's degree from the University of London, and today she is normal. And every day about noon, I get a text from her mother, "How can I pray for you today?" Look at this. How would you know unless you look? Look at these maps. The top is the highest incidence of schizophrenia in red. The Northwest, the North Midwest, and the West Coast. Below that, which is almost identical, is the highest incidence of Lyme disease. Should we screen people with psychosis for brain infections? Does COVID not teach us anything? I think infectious disease is a major cause of psychiatric problems. It's a major cause of dementia that very few people ever think about. Okay, stage 3. The status quo protects itself. It makes small incremental changes, but basically leaves the system in place to protect itself. Psychiatry has something called the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So they lost me there. They're not mental disorders, they're brain disorders. It's basically unchanged since 1980. And Dr. Keator mentioned Tom Insel, director of the National Institute of Mental Health, who said the DSM is 100% reliable. What does that mean? You make a diagnosis of ADHD or depression today using these criteria, you'll make that same diagnosis tomorrow. But then the top psychiatrist in the country goes, it's 0% valid. So he basically calls this a nonsense document because it's not based on any underlying neuroscience. So that comment caused a lot of consternation in the American Psychiatric Association. We can do better. Stage 4, the revolution. I never thought of myself as a revolutionary. I'm one of 7 children. I'm completely not special. I'm third. I have an older brother, an older sister, and 4 younger sisters, so pretty much irrelevant. I really like it when we get along. I'm a middle child, I'm a peacemaker, so starting trouble, not in my nature. So, 20 years ago, I realized the status quo is a shit show. I don't know how else to say this, but if you really take and look at this image, this is what's happening in our culture. Depression is up 400% since the year Prozac was approved by the FDA. So it's obviously not the solution. Alzheimer's disease is expected to triple. 50% of the population is diabetic or pre-diabetic. That should horrify you. If you understand what diabetes does to your brain, it's a disaster. Many people call Alzheimer's diabetes type 3. And 72% of the population is overweight, 42% are obese. 3 of my studies, the last one on 33,000 scans, show as your weight goes up, the actual physical size and function of your brain goes down in almost a linear path. It's horrifying. And when I first made that connection, I lost 25 pounds. I've been trying to not be pudgy. You saw me. I mean, it was sort of funny to see me, 25 years ago. I was sort of pudgy. But when I realized I was damaging my brain, I got the weight off. Brand new study this week. 20% of children are overweight or obese. 20%, 1 in 5. They have smaller brains. That is not okay. Because what that means is even though they're overweight, they're actually being undernourished. And that undernourishment is damaging their brain, which is going to have a negative generational impact. It'll have a negative impact for the rest of their life. And that's not fair. So, what's the answer? What's the revolution? What we discovered in Zeeman clinics is the answer to these epidemic problems is not to see them as separate disorders, but as different expressions of the same unhealthy lifestyle and infections and exposures that have exactly the same cure. And that's why we fed you right tonight. So Tana and I have written a book called The Brain Warrior's Way, because we believe you're in a war for the health of your brain. Everywhere you go, someone is trying to feed you bad food. That will kill you early. The real weapons of mass destruction, ISIS has nothing on our food industry. The weapons of mass destruction are highly processed, pesticide-sprayed, high glycemic, low fiber, food-like substances stored in plastic containers. It is damaging the health of our world. So, what's the model? If you're going to get people seriously healthy, you have to look at and optimize their brains. And I don't have time to tell you all the ins and outs of it, but we have a program in clinics called Bright Minds. You want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it if it's headed for trouble, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors. Bright Minds is the mnemonic, the second I is immunity and infections, the first I is inflammation, so on. Got to get your brain right. Got to get your brain right. How many psychiatrists you go to go, got to get your brain right? They don't look. It's become a pharmaceutical industry. In fact, psychiatrists are often called the prescriber. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm the healer. But in systems like Keator or the county, psychiatrists are often the prescriber, which I think is incredibly demeaning. I am your brain health doctor. And once we get your brain right, so think of that as the hardware of your soul, if you will, you're going to have to train your mind. First thing is get your brain right. First thing is get your brain right. Then you have to program it. So, you know, Amy Brown from HealthCorps is here. I'm so grateful to her. We need to teach children not to believe every stupid thing they think. You know, so we call it killing the ants. Automatic negative thoughts that steal your happiness. One of the very first things Carrie and I did together. And then we want to work on getting your relationships right. But if your brain's not right, your relationships aren't right. If your mind's not right, your relationships aren't right. And ultimately, you have to know why you care. Many doctors would never talk about God, but I went to Oral Roberts University, and we were taught to pray with our patients. I thought that was super cool. You gotta know why. You have to know why. But you can be incredibly spiritual and still be angry, or still be depressed, or still be suicidal from the concussion you had from playing football. Does this make sense? All four circles, all the time. I hate the term mental illness because it stains everyone diagnosed, making them less likely to seek help. No one is shamed for cancer or heart disease. Likewise, no one should be shamed for OCD, bipolar disorder, or PTSD. But if we do not lower stigma, many more people will suffer and die. Every 40 seconds, someone commits suicide. It's the second leading cause of death among young people. It's increased 35% since 1999, while cancer has declined. Why? We're working on the wrong paradigm. Mental illness places the emphasis on your psyche or your mind, which is vague and hard to define, when our brain imaging work clearly shows these are brain health issues. One of my favorite stories is Jared, diagnosed with ADHD in preschool, hyperactive, restless, impulsive, no friends, learning problems. The third grade teacher told his parents he would never amount to anything. He saw 5 doctors, put him on 5 stimulant medications. Now think about this with me. After you have made somebody worse on the second stimulant, who's got the learning problem? The stimulants triggered rages, mood swings, and when they wanted to put him on an antipsychotic medicine. Children who are not psychotic do not belong on antipsychotic medication. I mean, this is an insanity that started with some research at Harvard from somebody who was being paid by Johnson & Johnson. Made the New York Times, and it's a shit show. Trust me. Anyways, his mother brought him to see us. Normal, healthy scans. Jared's scans on the right. It's a pattern I described in 1997 called the ring of fire. His brain's working way too hard. Giving him stimulants is like pouring gasoline on a fire. And it turned out he had Lyme, and interestingly, on natural supplements, brain healthy habits, behavior was better, rages stopped, able to make friends, was on the honor roll for 10 years. And we were in this room at a benefit. And I was sitting next to him, and I love this kid. And I'm like, what do you want to be? He wants to be a firefighter. His dad's a firefighter. And I'm like, why? He said, on someone's worst day, I want to make it better. Think about that with me. Change the trajectory of this little boy's life. And today, he is working for the Long Beach Fire Department. This is why the foundation exists. How would Jared have been treated throughout history? I think this slide sums up a lot. Well, in ancient civilization, they would have drilled a hole in the skull to let out the evil spirits. We can do better. Hippocrates would have changed his diet, got him to exercise, I love that, and then he would have bled him. The idea was menstruation helped people not be crazy, and so let's just bleed people to see if that won't help. In the Middle Ages, they may have put him in an asylum. The 18th and 19th centuries, they may have sterilized him in the eugenics program, the precursor to Nazi Germany. Atrocities. In the 20th century, he would have been on Freud's couch 4 or 5 times a week, talking about his mother. In the 1950s, he might have gotten a lobotomy. That's where they take an ice pick and put it up through the orbit above your eye. You damage your frontal lobes, which won the Nobel Prize medicine, so I'm sort of okay not having a Nobel Prize yet. 1960s, you got electroconvulsive therapy, not the buzz you would like, and now the current thing is the 10-minute med check. It's a shit show. The imaging, for me, blew me away. It just changed the discussion around mental health. Nobody really wants to see a psychiatrist. I told my dad I wanted to be a psychiatrist, and he asked me why I didn't want to be a real doctor, why I wanted to be a nut doctor and hang out with nuts all day long. So my dad didn't get Father of the Year award. But I understand where he's coming from. No one wants to be labeled as defective or abnormal, but everybody wants a better brain. So what if mental health was really brain health? I believe this in every cell of my body. People would see their problems as medical and not moral, decreases shame and guilt, increases compliance because people want better brains, and my favorite part, it increases forgiveness and compassion in families when they can see, oh, it's an infection, or oh, it's a toxin, or oh, it's trauma. The single most important lesson from my work is you're not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better, even if you've been bad to it. My friend Dick Buckus is here, and he's been in a hyperbaric chamber for 800 hours, and is cognitively so much better. And that just makes me so happy. And many of you know my friend Lisa Gibbons is here. We've known each other 23 years. And I have loved her since the first time I was on her show with my book, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And we found out her mom and her grandmother died with Alzheimer's disease. And I love her. And I'm like, you need to come see me. She's like, no. I'm like, no, you need to come see me. And ultimately, she came and saw me. And her brain looked awful. And I'm like, oh no, we have to do something about this. Because what scans teach you, it's a big lesson. SPECT can tell years, probably decades, before you have any symptoms if you're headed for trouble. And her scan said she's headed for trouble. But doing all the things she and I talked about, 10 years later, her brain's fuller, fatter, healthier. And when she and I did a show together, she said, this tells a story. And it's the story of hope. You are not stuck with the brain you have. You can make it better. All right, we're at stage 5, and I hate this stage. Because I told you, I'm one of 7. I'm in the middle. I don't like conflict. And all of a sudden, I have this really cool thing that I want to share with everybody. In fact, in 12 New York Times bestsellers, I have shared it a lot. You are not stuck with the brain you have. And the more successful I get, the more the haters come after me. Because I think we should look at the brain. I've been demonized, threatened, bullied by colleagues. I've been called a snake oil salesman. I always say, well, did you know snake oil is 23% omega-3 fatty acids? And I just have to tell you, it's irritating, but it would never stop me. It would never stop me. I actually don't care what you think, because I know what I think. If you don't look, you don't know. Stop lying about it. And then in 2005, 2020 came to my office, and they lied to me. They said, we want your opinion on childhood bipolar disorder. And I'm like so excited, because I love sharing the message. And you know, the room's dark, it's lit really pretty, and the journalist starts. He said, there's a doctor at Columbia by the name of Brad Peterson who said you should be arrested for your work. how would you respond? And I'm so grateful at Orange Coast College, I was on the speech team. And my speech coach said, when you don't know what to say, take a breath and smile. It'll come to you. And so I took a breath and I smiled and I said, that's so interesting. Last week, someone told me I should win a Nobel Prize. This week, you're telling me I should be arrested. Sort of keeps me balanced. The acceptance. You're here tonight. And that almost makes me want to cry. Makes me really happy. So we have a long way to go. There are 40,000 psychiatrists in the United States, and I think about 7,000 have referred to us. So we're making progress. This is perhaps one of my favorite pictures ever, Muhammad Ali. We're fighting to make a change. The foundation tonight is fighting to make a change. We've literally seen people from virtually every country have come to one of our clinics. So I'm pretty excited about that. My books are translated into 42 languages. In 2011, so you have to know, the foundation I have mostly funded, Tana and I have mostly funded. Well, in 2007, I got really interested in the NFL's position on traumatic brain injury. I thought they were lying about it. Anthony Davis, who's here tonight, my good friend, I call him the father of our NFL work, Hall of Fame running back from USC. He's called the Notre Dame killer because in 1972 he scored 6 touchdowns against the University of Notre Dame. They hated him so much, the next year they put his picture on the walkways at the University of Notre Dame. Walk on him, and in 1974 he scored 4 more touchdowns. The Notre Dame killer. So he came to see me, and his brain was terrible, and then it wasn't. He's like, hey doc, if you knew Anthony, he's passionate. He's like, hey doc, we have to talk about this. And he wrote the commissioner a letter, and the commissioner didn't write back. And together with Anthony in the Los Angeles chapter of the NFL Players Association, we did the first and largest study on active and retired NFL players. We published that first study in 2011 on 100 players. We showed high levels of damage. That shouldn't surprise anyone. Brain is soft, skull is hard, skull has sharp bony ridges. Don't hit it against other things. Bad idea. High levels of damage. But what we didn't know, but proved, 80% of our players got better when we put them on a brain rehabilitation program. I got into a fight last year with NPR because they're like, Dr. Raymond says he can cure CTE. Not once did I ever say that. I'm like, but I can show you have brain damage and I can make brain damage better. CTE is an autopsy diagnosis. It's a diagnosis of the dead. I'm really interested in the living. 80% of brain damaged people can be better if you put them on a rehabilitation program. Diet, supplements, hyperbaric oxygen, TAP, all 11 of the Bright Minds risk factors. So here's AD. His brain was bad, and then it wasn't. And he's been on the supplement program virtually every day since 2007. And he's done hyperbaric oxygen, and he's clear-minded and sweet and purposeful. And I love him, and I love that. 2011, the foundation got a big infusion of money for us. I saw a family from Hong Kong a husband that was having trouble being faithful, a son who had learning problems, changed their lives, and then they sent me 40 people from China to see, and they're like, we love you, how can we help you? And they gave us $500,000 to create a searchable database with our scans, our diagnoses, response to treatment. It's now the world's largest database, and we published dozens of studies. So I'm eternally grateful to the Seeds Foundation. 2005, based on our research database, I published 2 studies showing we could separate post-traumatic stress disorder from traumatic brain injury with high levels of accuracy, and Discover magazine listed our research as one of the top 100 stories in science. So, not in psychiatry, not in medicine, in science. 18 was Tesla charges into renewable energy. 20 was the discovery of a vegan dinosaur species. 19 was brain scans may lead to better diagnosis. I sent it to all of my haters. Any hater I could get in touch with. It's sort of like sticking your tongue out of it in a scientific way. And in 2021, Canadian Association of Nuclear Medicine, a prestigious scientific body in Canada, wrote new procedure guidelines on SPECT as if I wrote them. In fact, 10 of the authors, 5 of them had been my students, and that made me very happy. But what made me happier is I have a paper coming out next year with Brad Peterson. The same Dr. Peterson who told 2020 I should be arrested. He now doesn't think we should go to jail, and he's joining the revolution. And in fact, Dr. Stephen Storage is here tonight, who I adore. Stephen works in our Encino clinic. He trained under Brad Peterson, where he learned about SPECT and thought, well, that's just cool. And I am so grateful to Dr. Peterson for Dr. Storage. And Carla Pennington's here, the executive producer, Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil has endorsed my work. I was on like the whole season, which was amazing. And this brain health message, I get criticized a lot for like he only sees rich people. It's completely not true. But 3 of my patients have 1 billion followers. We are impacting culture. And so many of you else probably have another 1 billion. Our Scan My Brain series, many of you are here tonight. Thank you. I love you. I'm grateful to you. You are all part of the revolution. My Daniel friends are here tonight. So, 2010, Pastor Warren said, I'm fat, my church is fat. Will you help me? And the week before, I'd gone to my church and watched them feed me donuts, hot dogs, ice cream, bacon. And I'm like, these people are trying to kill me. I'm going to get my soul fed, and these people are trying to kill me. And I prayed God would use me to change the culture of food in church. And 2 weeks later, Rick Warren called me, and he said, will you help me? And with my friend Mark Hyman, we created the Daniel Plan, which is a program to get the world healthy through churches. So think about this. A prayer. Think of it as intention. Pastor Warren calls me. 6 months later, 15,000 people sign up for the Daniel Plan. Think of it as a brain health program with God. Brain health program with God. And 15,000 people sign up. The first year they lose $250,000 pounds. And then we write an international best-selling book. And thousands of churches around the world do this program. I know we can end mental illness. We have a model for ending mental illness. We have a high school course that's in all 50 states, 7 countries, called Brain Thrive by 25. Independent research shows it decreases drug, alcohol, and tobacco use, decreases depression, and improves self-esteem. So here are 4 ways I want you to be part of the revolution and help me. And way number 1 is super simple. Live the message. Because if you don't live the message of brain health, you will suck as a messenger. If I serve alcohol tonight, that is not part of brain health. That our first core value at Amen Clinics is we're authentic. We live the message. Help fund research in so many interesting ways, and no other group on the planet has the database or the new number of patients that we see at Amen Clinics. Donate. This is what we do with the money we're going to raise tonight. Brain health programs in schools, with HealthCorps, with our own courses, and we have a course in business called the 30-Day Happiness Challenge, which increases happiness in businesses 32%. Or become a brain angel. I love that so much. Think about those you imagined at the beginning of my talk. Most people here have the means to access this help, but millions don't. The foundation's goal is to help 300 new people next year and increase that number every year. When we actually look at the numbers, that's a little over $1 million we're trying to raise. We've already raised $300,000, so we are grateful and happy. And anyone who becomes part of the foundation will share their success stories. Okay, just one more story. Ultimately, you have to ask yourself why. Why do you care? And I have so many stories. But the one that's just so close to me every day is my 2 nieces. So I dedicated my book, The End of Mental Illness, I think we're giving it to all of you tonight, is to my nieces, Amelie, who's 12, and Alize, who's almost 18. They have a family history of multiple suicides, schizophrenia, drug abuse, anxiety, and depression. But we know genes only load the gun. It's what happens to us that pulls the trigger. And unfortunately, they were raised in chaos with parents who struggled with addiction, domestic violence, and depression. Multiple moves, multiple schools, and they lived in filth. This is an actual picture of a garage that they lived in. Life was unpredictable, and 6 years ago, they were taken by Child Protective Services into foster care, where more traumas occur. And Tana and I didn't know them. It's Tana's half-sister who was struggling with an addiction. But when I heard they were taken into foster care, I'm like, we have to do something. And Tana's like, this is craziness. I grew up in craziness and I don't want any part of craziness. And it was the worst week of our marriage because she always says, you're the one that wants to change the world. I'm like horrified by what's happened to them. And Kat and I made up. It's all okay. Not without stress. So all of us would agree, all of us in this room would agree, these girls are at high risk for mental illness. So the foundation is dedicated to ending it in people like Alize and Amelie and in their children and grandchildren. Because when a little girl is born, she is born with all of the eggs she will ever have. And what happens to her throughout her life is turning on or off certain genes, making illness more or less likely in her babies and grandbabies. If you support the foundation, it is a generational play, which I love so much. So, this is Alize's specs. It's a disaster. I look at this scan And I cry for her because she had nothing to do with it. She was malnourished. I bet her mother drank when she was pregnant. They lived in filth and mold. Her brain is being eaten away. Now, how unfair is that? Through no fault of her own. So where would she be without intervention? She likely would have repeated the trauma that she experienced. Helping people change their brains can change the trajectory of their lives and impact generations. So, a year later, her brain is better. Now, this is not a straight line of improvement. We had a little vaping bump, and I grounded her for 6 months. Because I'm not kidding. If we're not aligned, I'm not doing this. And she pulled it together. And the girls are now happy A students, social, no longer addicted to hot Cheetos. And Alize is going to graduate from high school in June, from a high school called Early College in Costa Mesa, with an AA degree. So get this, high school, she graduated from high school with 2 Associate of Arts degrees in math and science and arts and humanities. I could not be more proud of her. She studied medical school. So who can you support to have a better brain and a better life? You can end mental illness and be part of the revolution. Thank you so much. We have one final video, and then we're going to raise it.
Some of the worst calls are things that no human being should have to witness. Anything that has to do with the kids, cutting people out of cars and doing the stuff that we do. I couldn't get in front of my anxiety, my depression, and my PTS. There's nothing. I just felt like I just couldn't. I went into my gun safe and I grabbed my AR, and thank God my wife was there and heard it, and she dropped the clip out and got the gun away from me. What I thought was a really bad night was actually a turning point in my whole life. This couldn't have come at a better time. In a treatment center that I was helping out with, we were sending some of our first responders to you guys. I always thought that would be really cool to do that. All first responders can benefit from the Amen Clinic for sure. Part of my brain that's responsible for the anxiety, and seeing that with my own 2 eyes, it doesn't make me feel like crazy. That I think that really speaks to first responders. It takes the stigma away. It takes mental health and changes it into brain health. And I think that explaining that to them, I think they're going to be more apt to ask for help and go down this road.
Well, this has been fun. I'm so grateful to everyone who came tonight. Well, here we are. Well, what did you think?
I thought it was amazing. I'm feeling very blessed by everybody here tonight.
So I have to tell you a secret. Since my dad died 2.5 years ago, my mom has 7 children. She's not spent one night alone. So one of us goes to her home in Corona del Mar, and we sleep over. We watch whatever with her, and she's 91. And so I said, hey, can I do my talk for you? And she's like, sure. Slide 3, she said, it's really boring. I know that you don't want to hear them, but don't bore them. So, did I bore you tonight? Anyways, we are so grateful, and we're honored and adore you. Thank you for helping us live this revolution. Have a great night, everybody.